Hi guys, today is Wednesday afternoon and I've got two things on my to-do list for this evening. The first is to show you a fresh set of moisture meter readings from Athena's hull. But as you might be able to tell if you direct your attention to the awesome looking Portlight next to me, it's raining outside and it's been raining for most of the day. That certainly doesn't seem ideal for grabbing a fresh set of moisture readings. Fortunately, I have a set of readings that are only a couple of days old. I've got those moisture readings right here. If you're wondering why I haven't mentioned any kind of moisture readings for the last 2 months or so, it is because of a very embarrassing and very silly mistake on my part. The moisture meter I'm using, that's this one right here, it has 3 different ranges you can choose from. One of those is GRP, which is of course what I'm supposed to use for the hull. Well, sadly, I must, without noticing it, have switched it to a different range. And by pure coincidence, that happened at a point in time where we also saw a sudden drop in temperature. That led me to the faulty conclusion that the garbage readings I was getting from this was because this meter was influenced by temperature, when in fact it was just because I had put it into the wrong range. About 2 weeks ago, while comparing my meter to a friend's meter, I discovered my mistake. So yeah, no need to dwell on my embarrassing mistake. Let's just take a look at those readings. Over here we've got the 25 data points I'm tracking, and up here we've got the weeks. So this is the latest, this is week 15. And if we look at the average of all of these moisture readings, it has now dropped to 65 and it used to be 78. So that's certainly progress. And if you look at this chart here, the blue line is the average of all the moisture readings, and you can see that it is dropping. So of course I'm hoping that will continue. If you're new to my channel, perhaps I should mention why I'm tracking those moisture readings. Well, it's part of an osmosis treatment because I need the hull to dry out before I can proceed. Now, are those measurements dropping as quickly as I'd like them to? Not really, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over the winter. Fingers crossed. For the second item on my to-do list for tonight, I'll just have to change into some other clothes. I'll be right back. Office clothes thusly removed, let's move on. You guys might already have guessed what I'm about to do because I needed to change my clothes. But if you haven't, the next item on my to-do list is to get the next coat of paint on the galley. I've already taken care of all the prep work, so that means I've sanded the entire surface because it's been a while since I applied that first coat. And I've also taped off all of the teak trim. So let's get started. With the painting done, all that's left to do now is my favorite part, removing the masking tape. Second coat of paint, check. I'm in a hurry to get back to Obelix because Jökull is overdue for his evening walk, but I'll see you guys in a few days. Hi guys! It's a few days later, which means it's the weekend now, and of course that equals working on Athena. It's been raining a lot this last week, and that might not sound like great news, but it actually is. The reason that is awesome news is because I haven't seen a single drop of rain from any of the new Portlights. Of course that might very well change once I take Athena out sailing and the hull starts to flex a bit, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. For now, I'm just very pleased I got rid of those old leaky Portlights. I still need to install the 7th Portlight, but that was the Portlight where one of the previous owners have used some kind of adhesive sealant that ruined the gel coat behind here. So I'll have to wait for the temperature to go up above 15 degrees Celsius so that I can fix the gel coat damage before putting in the new Portlight. Until then, I've just covered up the hole with some of this reinforced tarp, and that should be good for the next 5 or 6 months. Now that I'm on the topic of Portlights, I mentioned in the last video that I was going to place an order for 2 additional Portlights. In each of the aft cabins there's one of these tiny little Portlights here, and they are in just as bad shape as the old Portlights in the saloon. This is the one in the port aft cabin. And this is the one in the starboard side aft cabin. Both are in pretty bad shape. There's one thing keeping me from placing that order for those 2 new Portlights, and that is that I need to figure out how to install them with insulation and wooden slats on the inside of the hull. But Let me try and explain that with a drawing. Before I dig out pen and paper and disappoint you guys with my lack of artistic skills, perhaps I should just show you the old foam insulation up here. As you can see, this is the 7th Portlight, but as you can see, the foam is in kind of a rough shape. It's got a lot of mold on it and it's pretty nasty. So I want to remove all of this vinyl-backed foam insulation stuff and put up some closed-cell foam insulation, cover that with wooden slats, just like I did in the rebirth aboard Obelix. This is my attempt at a drawing, and if we focus our attention over here, this is a cross section of the hull. So this is GRP and this is GRP, and we've got the deck up here, and then this is a portlight cut in half. The way these portlights are secured to the hull is with a screw, and then it's through bolted through the hull. So this bit right here, that's the inner frame, that's this part here. So there's a bit of clamping force involved here. Looking at this part of the drawing here, this is basically what I want to do. This is the exact same thing I did aboard Obelix, where this squiggly line here is some closed-cell foam insulation that I've adhered to the hull. So this is looking directly at the hull from the inside. And then I've epoxied some wooden strips onto the hull here that I can then screw the wooden slats into. That's perfectly fine. But what do I do when I get over to the portlight? Because I can't just put this on top of that wood and closed-cell foam insulation. That would just squash it. So I'm thinking I could make like an inner frame here of some G10 and then put this on top. Something along the lines of this. So this is the GRP and this is the portlight cut in half, and then this little block here is some G10. Now in this example here, I've got the wooden slats on top of the G10 here, but I could also just let the G10 come all the way out to this little blob here, which is, of course, the inner frame piece. I'll take some photos of my drawing and send those off to Southeast Marine Windows. That's where I'm purchasing the Portlights. They have a ton more experience with this stuff, and I'm probably not the first to ask this question, so I'm sure I'll get some good recommendations back on how I can make this look nice, but also stand the test of time. Let's move on to something else. Over here in the galley, I decided to use a 9 or 12mm compact laminate as the countertop. For me to do that, I'll need to create an exact template, and for me to be able to do that, I'll need to put the piece that goes here into place. The good thing about that is that that should give you guys a pretty good idea of what the galley is going to look like once I'm done. And this should just slide right in. There we go. I've purposely built the piece that goes here so that it's removable in case I ever need to gain access to the area where the fridge sits. And if I just need to access the bottom part of this compartment, there's a small opening here, but if I need to access the top part here, I will need to remove this piece. I've put this piece of plywood back, and I don't really know what to call this. I could call it the sub-countertop, almost kind of like a subfloor. But yeah, this is what's going to provide much of the strength for the compact laminate. That's why I might be able to get away with using a 9mm piece of compact laminate, although it's a pretty big gap here. And also, this is what's going to support the sink. See, this sink is going to sit here, and then the compact laminate is going to sit on top of that. With the sub-countertop secured in place, I'm just going to use a flush cutting bit on my router to get rid of this overhang. Now I'm left with this little annoying piece of overhang here that the router couldn't get to, but I can take this off with a flush cutting saw. Now that I've trimmed this flush, let's go ahead and make the template, and for that I'll use this 6mm piece of MDF. Rather than using the router with a flush cutting bit to trim this to size, I'm just going to use a pencil to draw on the bottom of this piece here, because I do have some unevenness up here that I need to take into account. So I'm just going to mark this end, and then here, and then way down here. If you guys recall, the unevenness I've got up here is because I had some issues with my flush cutting bit where the bearing sort of slipped on me. It was getting awfully dark in here, so I've just turned on some lights. Let's get to cutting. Well, that took a bit of fiddling around, but let's see how this fits. Perfect. Now that I have this in the correct shape, all I need to do is to cut the hole for the fridge and for the sink. No doubt the sink is going to be the most challenging of the two. Let's start with the opening for the fridge. Well, I'm certainly glad I covered the opening in the box itself with some plastic. The flush cutting bit naturally rounds over any sharp corners, like for instance here. This is supposed to be a 90-degree corner, so I'm just going to use the flush cutting saw just to make this 90 degrees again. And there we go. Hi guys, sorry about the abrupt change of scenery. A friend of mine swung by the boat unexpectedly and I got distracted, so I forgot to record the last bit of yesterday. I did get a little bit of work done, so let's head down below and take a look at that. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but I've already removed most of the cutout for the sink. I still need to remove this corner and this edge here, so let's do that. Now for the interesting bit. Let's see how this fits. Perfect. As you can see, I've opted to pull the countertop a little back from the edge of the sink. I had three different options here. I could either let the countertop extend over the sink, or I could make the countertop flush with the sink here, or I could pull it back a little. No matter which of the three I chose, I'm sure I'd get some gunk over time in this joint in here. At least with this solution, it's easier for me to clean. Plus, this allows me to do something like this. This solution is of course very much inspired by the comments I've received from you guys, and I want to thank you so much for all of your awesome feedback. I appreciate it very much. This is in fact also inspired by a boat I saw at the boat show in Hamburg while I was there with my friend Ulrich. Now before I can move you guys a little bit further back and give you an overview of the galley, there's still one more thing I need to do. And that is to make the template for the compact laminate countertop that goes here. Fortunately, this is gonna be super easy. This is what the galley looks like now. It's slowly but surely starting to come together. If you use your imagination a little bit, it's not that difficult to picture what this is going to look like once I'm done. For instance, this is the color of countertop I'm considering using. It's sort of a matte black. I think that'll look really cool with the white paint and the varnished teak. As for this area here, I'm considering putting sheets of stainless steel on this, but I don't know if that's going to look too industrial. So if you've got some feedback on that, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Oh, and you gotta imagine the inside of the hull here covered by wooden slats. I am super excited to see what the galley is going to look like once I'm done. I know it comes down to personal taste, but I think it's gonna look pretty dang good. Now, there was one more thing I was planning on putting into this video, but I think I'll postpone that to next week, and that is to make a sample for the new headliner. I have some different samples of genuine imitation leather, and I've chosen to go with this one because it's about half the price of these two here. And I've also got two different kinds of glue I want to test out. And these are gonna be my test pieces here, but all of that will have to wait till next week. That just about wraps up this weekend's video. There's one final thing I want to mention, and that's the fact that next weekend's video might be a few days late. So instead of publishing on Sundays, I might publish it on Monday or Tuesday, but we'll see. And that's because my parents are going to swing by on Saturday and help me do a bit of sanding here aboard Athena. With that out of the way, that is going to be it for this video, guys. See you. Yukul and I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more videos like it, click subscribe. Please consider leaving a comment and a thumbs up. It really helps me a lot and I appreciate your support very much. If you're new to the channel, please check out the introduction playlist. If you want to watch every single video I've ever published, check out the playlist named All Videos. It contains every single video listed in chronological order.